Hey everyone, Finity from Reality Skewed Gamers here, and we are here to talk about the latest character coming into Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Mon Mothma. Now, Mon Mothma is coming in with a few new abilities and a new tag that we are going to look into and get a little bit of discussion about. But first, we're going to go through some of the basics of the character and then talk a little bit about where Mon Mothma may fit into your roster. So we got a post giving us Mon Mothma's kit reveal. Now, Mon Mothma comes with a few little tricks that makes her similar to some characters, but also a little bit different. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about some of the characters that Mon Mothma kind of reminds us of as we start to put the whole thing together. So, starting out with Mon Mothma, she is going to be a light-sized support rebel character. Now, she is introducing a new tag in the game called a Rebel Fighter. Now, Rebel Fighters are going to include a specific group of characters that we will talk about here in a little bit, but she herself is not a Rebel Fighter. Now, this is important because it does come into play a little bit in some of the other skills that are going to happen here, but she is just a Rebel. Now, her basic will dispel all debuffs on the weakest Rebel ally, and Rebel allies recover 6% health and protection. Now, when you think about this, it does remind you a little bit of Hermit Yoda. Now, it's a basic that does healing and protection, and a little bit of a spoiler here, she is a character that will not be targetable. So she's not a damage dealing character, she's going to be that support role to its fullest extent, and so her basic does remind you a little bit of what Hermit Yoda does. When we look at her special, Restore Our Republic, she will revive a random Rebel fighter with 40% health and protection. All Rebel allies have their current health percentages equalized, then rally Mon Mothma and Rebel fighter allies. Now, what does rally do? Now, rally has a different implication based on the character, so tanks will taunt and gain critical hit immunity for 2 turns, attackers will assist, and healers and supporters restore 15% health and protection to their allies. So, what does this mean? Now we have another reviving character. Now, there are a few of these in the game, and the Rebels themselves have a couple, between Captain Han Solo being able to res everyone, Jyn being able to res a Rebel, and not to mention Cara Dune and Scarif Rebel Pathfinder being able to res themselves. So now we get another res within the Rebel faction that can potentially make some teams a little bit useful, especially as we get into the Rebel Fighter tag. The next one is special number 2. Now, that is the field promotion. Now, field promotion is going to be fairly interesting and may remind you of another character. You are going to summon a Rebel Trooper. If the Rebel Trooper is already present, they're going to be promoted to an officer. If the officer is present, they're going to get promoted to a commander. And then if the commander is present, they're going to get some additional things going on. Now, this is a 5-turn cooldown, but a summoning into the 6th spot as a result of an ability does remind you a little bit of Geo Brood Alpha. So we're seeing a little bit of the Hermit Yoda aspect with the basic and the revive kind of getting into that healer type mentality, but now we're seeing a shift into a little bit more of a pseudo offensive style by the summon of Rebel Trooper, putting her close to the GBA type of kit. It goes even further than that though with the comparisons to GBA, because her leader ability does give you the ability, and I'm going to read the second part first. Mon Mothma and Rebel Fighter allies have a 100% chance to assist each other whenever they use an ability during their turn. During their turn, they assist each other. It is very much like Geo Brood Alpha. She's going to create that kind of swarm type of mentality with Rebel Fighters. Now, going back a little bit here to the end of the other ability, the summoning of the Rebel Trooper is only usable if all the allies are rebels at the start of the battle. Now, keep that in mind. It is rebels, not Rebel Fighters. So, you can maybe mix and match a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little when we get into the theory crafting. But since her leader ability is based on Rebel Fighters, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the Rebel Fighters that are going to be in the game. Now, along with the kit reveal that Crumb posted on the forums, we also got a developer insight. Now, you guys are welcome to read through this. It gives a little bit of an idea about how they came up with the Mon Mothma character, but most importantly is the list right here of all of the Rebel fighters. Now, the Rebel fighters include Baze Malbus, Biggs Darklighter, Biston, Bodhi Rook, Cara Dune, Cassian Andor, Chirrut Emwe, Hoth Rebel Scout, Hoth Rebel Soldier, Jyn Erso, K2SO, Landu Calrissian, Pow, Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, and Wedge Antilles. Now, the oddest one here is probably Lando of the entire group, but you notice a little bit of a theme here. A lot of these characters are Rogue One characters. Now, definition of Rebel fighters is definitely something that has come up and why some are and some aren't, and that is a debate for another day, but what we probably see here is a reason for the tag based on balance of the characters and allowing some usability of characters that otherwise may not be used. So we're seeing a big emphasis on Rogue One characters, which have long since fallen by the wayside of the days that a Jyn lead may be viable. So as we go back now to the abilities and we look at what the Rebel fighters can put together, we can see that those that get assists are going to need some good basics. And so when we theory craft a little bit, we'll talk about some of the characters that get benefits from their basic ability that do end up being key for this team. Now, the other part of her leader ability is at the start of the battle, if Mon Mothma is in the leader slot, she and all Rebel fighter allies gain 8% of their combined base, max health, max protection, defense, offense, potency, and tenacity. Now, this does become important because you're getting 8% of kind of the collective group, which can be a lot. It's basically, on average, it's going to be about 40% of an individual character if everyone is the same, right? So that's a pretty sizable boost to the offense. But why is this really important? The reason it's important is because the assists that come along with Mon Mothma and the Rebel fighters, if it is being abilities that do attacks, there is a 90% damage reduction on the damage done by the Rebel fighters on the assist. If they use an ability that does not attack and that triggers kind of the Rebel swarm, then they do 45% less damage. But even then, you're seeing kind of that big downfall of damage where the 45 may get a little bit canceled out by the boost to the offense, but the 90% is not. So the swarm is not going to be as effective as the Geos, so the abilities that are utilized as part of that is going to be quite important. But with the additional health and the additional protection, as well as the defense, potency, and tenacity, you are getting more survival for these characters than maybe even the Geos. But if you don't have the offensive output, we know that there are plenty of teams that can start to burn you down. So this comes to the last unique. The last unique of Mon Mothma is going to be, is this our rebellion? Now, she does have another unique that ties into the Rebel Trooper, but her main unique is, this is our rebellion. And what it does is it gives her 50 bonus speed. So her speed is now increased, and her speed is going to be key to make this team go. Mon Mothma cannot be targeted, so you can't kill her, but she also has no offensive options. So it's not surprising that the next part says that if there are no other allied combatants at the start of the turn, Mon Mothma escapes from the battle. So for those of you that are theory crafting, of course, the team is going to come up of Mon Mothma, 3PO, and Hermit Yoda. Throw in a Watt there, and you have yourself an insta-lose team. So then we get into the Rebel Trooper. The Rebel Trooper is an attacker, unlike the Brute for Brute Alpha that is a tank. So you are getting a attacker. It is a damage dealer. It has the ability to potentially daze. Now, there is a lot of upgrades that happen here, and I will let you read kind of what the Rebel Trooper does. There is one downside to the Rebel Trooper. The upgrades to the Rebel Troopers are pretty slow because the cooldown on Mon Mothma's ability is going to be 5 turns. So unless there's a way to really quicken her cooldowns, she is going to be kind of slow to get those upgrades across, and Rebel Trooper can potentially die fairly easy. His stats are going to be based on what Mon Mothma has, and her leader ability does help with increasing those stats so that the Rebel Trooper can have more survivability. So when we look at this character, what is a team that we could potentially theory craft? Well, when we look at what they gave us, They said the synergy was Wedge Antilles, Cara Dune, Chirrut Emwe, and Pow. Now, I kinda agree with this, except for one, maybe two exceptions. And really the one I disagree with is Wedge. I don't really think Wedge Antilles really fits into this team. What this team has right now is a lot of rebel fighters, and it's good that all these characters that are synergizing are rebel fighters. But each one brings a particular set of skills that is going to be kind of critical to the team. Now, what would my suggested one be? When I'm theory crafting a team for Mon Mothma, what I need to do first is to look at her stats. Now, on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, swgoh.gg, we now do have some of the stats available for us to look at. But first, before we could do that, let's go ahead and look a little bit at the overall speeds of some of these rebel fighters and why I'm going to come to the conclusion that I do. When we look at the list of speed characters, obviously the Galactic Legends are at the top, but when we look at the rest of it, the first rebel fighter to show up on this speed list is going to be Jyn Erso. Now, Jyn Erso is not going to be on this team. She's a leader in her own right, but she's not going to be a leader on this team, and she's also not going to be a character on this team. And so, of course, Jyn Erso is not going to be part of this. The next fastest one is going to be Cara Dune at 177 speed. Now, Cara Dune should not be the first person to go if she is on this team, because ideally what you want to happen is that somebody else is going before her so that she can assist, do her basic, and then gain the taunt, because Mon Mothma is a rebel in the lead spot. So for Mon Mothma to actually be able to use Cara Dune to her full extent, she is going to need to be one of the, if not the fastest, rebel fighter, rebel character in the game. And it's possible if she had a speed of around 185, 190, somewhere around there, plus the 50 from her unique ability, then makes her viable for a useful team. But now we see what her stats are. When we go into GG and we go to the characters and look up Mon Mothma, unfortunately her speed is a whopping 111. And then when you get the 50 on top of that, it puts her at 161 when you are gear 13. So this makes it a very slow character. Mon Mothma really needed the speed. It's going to be a huge downfall of this character. And so because of that, you have to kind of change around a bit of the synergies. So I do not think Wedge is the correct character. I also do not think now, because of the speed of Mon Mothma, that Cara Dune is the correct character as well. So what substitutions would I make for that team? Well, when I think of what team I would now put around Mon Mothma, there are two characters that I would substitute for those two. The team that I would put together is Mon Mothma with Pow and Chirrut, but the two substitutes would be Baze and C-3PO. Now, Baze, for the obvious reason that he is an auto-taunter. Protecting this team is going to be critical in order for it to be successful. And the Chirrut and Baze combo is one of the strongest in the game in terms of a duo. C-3PO provides something a little bit different to this entire team. He has a unique that makes it so whenever a rebel uses a basic ability, they can land exposed, and it can't be evaded. Now, what does this mean for this Mon Mothma team? Well, that means whenever all the rebel fighters are assisting in the attacks, they are going to be able to land exposed. So despite the fact that Mon Mothma is making it 90% less damage, the exposes are now doing percentage damage based on the max health. And so C-3PO by himself with his unique now increases the damage output of this team by quite a bit. And so the team that I'm looking forward to for Mon Mothma is going to be this team of Mon Mothma, C-3PO, Pow, Chirrut, and Baze. So we'll see how this all works out, but ultimately it's going to be an interesting matchup of this team. But where does it fit into your roster? Well, I think for the most part, Mon Mothma is going to be a character for mid-level players. It's going to be for those that aren't really close to Galactic Legends, may not have Gas or Darth Revan close by, or may have it completed already, but are now looking for some more fun teams to use in their GAC. This is going to be a team about on par with maybe Ewoks, Imperial Troopers, kind of a selective use team that may be some fun, but is not going to be a top tier team. And so I see this as a fun character, but not a great character. It's not going to be one of those highest tier, and I think recently we have been spoiled a little bit by the releases of some characters that have shown that they can truly be impactful characters, such as Chewpio and the Vader rework. So overall, my grade for Mon Mothma is somewhere around probably a C plus B minus. I think she's a good character. I think her speed is too slow. If she had a better speed, she would probably be a little bit closer to a B plus character. But she's also probably missing something in this Rebel Fighter group. I would expect that we will get another Rebel Fighter of some kind in this game relatively soon to help build around this Mon Mothma team. So I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into Mon Mothma. Please leave some comments down below on what you think of Mon Mothma, and if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button and check out some of our other videos. And on that note, I am Infinity with Reality Skewed Gamers. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I hope you give this video a thumbs up.